This episode contains mature themes which some viewers may find distressing. Tia Christine Sharp was born on the 30th of June 2000 in Croydon, London, the daughter of Natalie Sharp and Stephen Carter. Natalie and Stephen separated when Tia was still a baby, and she lived mainly with her mother, siblings and their maternal grandmother, Christine Bicknell, in New Addington, though Tia still saw her father during holidays. That is, until the relationship between Natalie and Stephen soured. Tia was incredibly close to her mother and grandmother, and Christine has said that she, Tia and Natalie were more like best friends than relatives. Tia would occasionally call Christine Mum, and she would not be bothered by this. Tia was described as confident, happy, and unafraid to express her opinions. Her mother said that when Tia entered a room full of strangers, she would always leave with a new friend. Natalie also said that Tia was always the loudest in the room. She achieved good grades in school and was liked by her teachers, but in 2008, the family were investigated by social services because of Natalie and her partner's cannabis use. A report described the family dynamic as dysfunctional. However, the investigation found no evidence of abuse or neglect, so no further action was taken, with Tia's school simply asked to monitor her. Tia and her siblings grew up in New Addington, Croydon. In 2002, while working as a barmaid in southwest London, Christine met 27-year-old Stuart Hazel. Hazel initially began a relationship with Natalie, but after 2 weeks, the relationship had ended. He began dating Christine and moved into the family home in New Addington in 2007. Born on the 26th of May 1975, Stuart Edward Hazel has a troubled upbringing. His mother was a sex worker and his father was in and out of prison, so he spent time in the care system. It was apparent that he had a low IQ, meaning he performed poorly academically. Former teachers did not speak highly of him at all. He would allege that he had been raped in a youth hostel when he was 16. By the time he began dating Christine, he had 30 convictions and had been to prison 3 times. His previous convictions included dealing drugs, burglary, criminal damage, theft, racially motivated violence, and grievous bodily harm. Because he continued to drink heavily and use drugs, this would cause him to behave irrationally. In 2012, he was convicted of carrying a machete and subsequently handed a 12-month custodial sentence. Christine stood by her partner, however, and claimed that she never saw his violent side at home, calling him a gentle giant. Indeed, Hazel had a close bond with Christine and her family, including Tia and her siblings. So strong was their bond that Tia would stay the night at her grandmother's house with Hazel, even while Christine was working nights as a care assistant. Tia idolized Hazel so much that when she was given the chance to invite a friend to her 12th birthday dinner, she chose to invite her step-grandfather instead. On August 2nd, 2012, CCTV captured Tia and Hazel getting off a tram at 4:50 p.m. and then going shopping. That night, Christine called the house and she said she could hear Tia laughing in the background as she and Hazel were using the PlayStation. Christine returned from work on the morning of Friday the 3rd of August 2012, where Hazel told her that Tia had gone to Croydon to buy new shoes. By 6 p.m, Tia had not returned, so Christine phoned Natalie, who confirmed that she had not seen Tia either. The two messaged her via text and messenger, but got no response. Christine and Natalie drove around the area to see if they could find Tia, hoping that the public transport was simply running late and that she would be home soon. With Tia still not home by 10 p.m, Christine, Natalie and Hazel went to the local police station and reported her missing. Hazel told police that he had last seen Tia at midday when she left for Croydon to buy new shoes. A phone call from a neighbour appeared to confirm Hazel's story. Police searched Christine and Hazel's home, including the attic, but found nothing. With no sign of Tia in the house, the police broadened their search into the surrounding area. Hazel led some of the searches. News of Tia's disappearance spread rapidly. Metropolitan Police said that Tia had left with only a small amount of money and did not take her travel card or mobile phone, stressing that this was out of character. They said that they were treating her disappearance as a missing persons inquiry, that there were no suspects in the case, and that they did not believe anything untoward had happened to her. Natalie told a news outlet that the family was absolutely distraught. With a lack of CCTV footage of Tia, they did not know what could have happened to her. On the 7th of August, DCI Nick Scholar, using a CCTV image of Tia, gave the press and the public a description of the missing girl. Tia's uncle, David Sharp, also gave a press appeal urging her to return to her family, as well as thanking the police and the public for their efforts in trying to find his niece. There were 55 reported sightings of Tia, but police were not able to substantiate any of them. As Hazel was the last person to have seen Tia alive, he felt that this made him a possible suspect in the case, so he gave an interview with ITV in the hopes of clearing his name and eliminating any suspicion that he may have been involved in Tia's disappearance. On August the 9th, he gave an interview with Mark Williams Thomas, an investigative journalist and former police detective who would go on to expose the horrific crimes of disgraced television presenter Jimmy Savile.
Tell me a little bit about Tia's life. I mean, is she a happy girl? Is she jolly? Has she got any problems?
No, she's got no problems at all. She's a happy-go-lucky golden angel. You know what I mean? She's perfect. There's no arguments, nothing we can think of. Absolutely nothing.
So Tia stays here Thursday night, just with you. Christine's working. Talk me through Friday up until the last time you see her. Tell me exactly what you did.
Tia's come down the stairs around about half 10, 11, something like that maybe. Because I know she was on about going up to Croydon for about, she wanted to get up early. She picked up your mum's DS up, played the DS for a little while. I said, well, we're going to have some breakfast. So I made her some toast, and she had the toast, and then she wanted a sausage roll, because she's always eating sausage rolls. Basically, and then she was sitting there. She doesn't take her washing up out, so I took her washing up out. Just started doing a little bit of washing up in the kitchen. She was in there. She was telling me what she was doing, but I weren't really logging it into my head. I didn't. Do you know what I mean? Remember, like the kids, they talk to you. It goes in one ear, stays there for a second, and it goes out. You know what I mean? As I was hoovering, then she walked out. She walked past me from the front room to go out, and she walked out the front door. That is all I know. And she left her phone on charge, because I told her to sit there and leave her phone on charge. I didn't mean leave it on charge, because what Tia doing, she plays on the BB thing, but then she uses it as it's charging, so there's no charge going through to it. So when I said to her, just leave your phone on charge, it means leave her phone on charge, not use it, let it charge up a bit, then you can actually take it with you, or whatever, because she's been responsible to go to Croydon before. She's been responsible to go on trains and buses and trams and everything before on her own.
So when she walked past you and out to the door, did she say anything?
She said, oh, goodbye. Well, I said, well, make sure you're back at 6. She went, yeah. And that was it, and then the door closed and she walks out. I don't take precise times and things like that, but when she walked out that door, I know damn well it was 12:10, according to my clock, because as I was hoovering up the dog's mess by my kitchen, I look up and I've got a great big clock in front of me on the cooker, which says 12:10.
Now listen, you've been living in house arrest,
basically,
almost, for the last 7 days almost now. How's that been?
Oh, it's been horrible. It's been horrible. Do you know what I mean? The family's, we're stuck inside here, do you know what I mean? We've got all the papers outside, all putting accusations down, and they asked me stupid questions yesterday, like, oh, did you do anything? I said, well, no, I didn't. Excuse my language, but no, I didn't. I'd never think of that. I'd loved her to bits. She's like my own daughter, for God's sake. We had that sort of relationship. It was that sort of thing. It was just, you know, she wanted it, she got it. She's got a loving home. She's never gone without anything, so I can't work it out. What the hell's going on? We're all out there, they want to report the truth.
So do you feel under pressure? Do you feel that perhaps the people are looking at you?
Well, if they believe what they read in the papers, they can do whatever they like, because I know deep down in my heart that Tia walked out of my house. She walked out of there, and I know damn well because she was seen walking down the pathway. I know she made that track down to that way. What happened after that is I don't know.
Hazel's conduct during the interview raised suspicions in Williams Thomas and Robert Phipps, a body language expert. Williams Thomas commented that, at times, Hazel struggled to remember to say to him what he had said to other people. Phipps said that Hazel's body language was far too animated for a supposedly grieving relative, and that he was adding in far too much detail, as if to make his story appear true. Phipps also added that a normal blinking rate is around 20 blinks per minute, whereas Hazel's blinking rate was around twice that number, indicating that he was nervous. If one looks at the footage, they will see that his ears are bright red, which can happen when a person is nervous or stressed. During the interview, Christine came in, at which point he took off his microphone and went to offer her support. On Friday the 10th of August, 1 week after Tia was reported missing, and 1 day after he had given an interview with ITV, Hazel woke up early and left the house. When Christine woke up later that morning, she could smell an extremely strong odour, but could not locate the source of said odour. When police arrived, they asked her to leave immediately so that they could conduct another search. A fourth and final search of the house was undertaken, during which a body, wrapped in black bin liners, was found in the attic. Due to the heat and the fact that the body had been stored in the attic, the body had decomposed to the point where the person was unrecognisable. A post-mortem was undertaken on the day the body was carried out of the house, although it had still not been completed by the 16th of August. However, at an inquest which opened that day, it was confirmed that the body was that of 12-year-old Tia Sharp. She was identified via her dental records. The state of decomposition was such that the pathologist was unable to determine exactly how she had died. Experts told This Is Croydon Today that the delay in finding Tia's body had made it much harder for the pathologist to establish her cause of death, which would also make it much more difficult for a prosecution to build a case. Although Tia's cause of death has not been established, police suspected, and it was widely reported, that she most likely had been smothered to death, although this has not been officially proven to have been the cause of her death. As Area Commander Neil Basu stated that the Metropolitan Police's task at that moment was to support Tia's distraught family, police focused their attention on Stuart Hazel, only he was on the run. He was filmed on CCTV buying a bottle of vodka in a shop in Canning Hill Lane, South London. Police urged the public not to approach Hazel if they saw him, and to instead contact the police. Following a tip-off from a member of public who had seen him on ITV, a heavily inebriated Hazel was arrested at 8:25 p.m. on Canning Hill Common. As he was taken away in a police van, members of the public hurled abuse at him. Shortly afterwards, police announced that they had made 2 further arrests. Christine Bicknell was arrested on suspicion of murder, and Paul Meehan, the neighbour who claimed to have seen Tia leaving the house, was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. While Christine was being questioned by police, Natalie had to watch on television as her daughter's body was removed from the house. Because Tia's body was so badly decomposed, she was not allowed to see Tia. Members of the public laid tributes to Tia by a garage near Christine's house, which was still cordoned off. Christine was eventually released on bail, but was not allowed to see Natalie or any of her grandchildren. As the investigation continued, police began to learn the truth about the man Tia had called Grandad. Unbeknownst to Tia and her family, as she was developing into a young woman, Hazel was beginning to have sexual fantasies about her. He had become infatuated with her and was convinced that she loved him. In the final year of her life, Hazel's obsession with Tia intensified, and his behaviour became increasingly more voyeuristic. He began filming her in secret. In one video, she was filmed rubbing moisturiser into her legs, unaware that she was being filmed. He even began filming her as she slept. In one such video, he got very close to her and pulled back when she began to stir. He then panned the camera up to the wall momentarily to film his shadow looming over her. He removed the door on the bathroom wall and adjusted the light fitting in her bedroom so that he could use this as a spy hole. Hazel's internet search history reinforced his infatuation with Tia. He had begun searching for violent extreme pornography, including incest porn and paedophilia. He had also looked at images of young girls who resembled Tia and, like her, had glasses and brown hair. After Bicknell was released on bail, detectives refocused their attention on Hazel. He told police that he and Tia had been playing on the night of her death, and that she had accidentally fallen down the stairs, but appeared unharmed. He said that after drinking heavily and smoking too much weed, he woke up and found her dead on the floor. Panicking and not knowing what to tell Christine and Natalie, he wrapped her body in bin bags and left it between the rafters in the attic. Next to her body and wrapped in plastic bags, police found Tia's clothes and her broken glasses. Christine Bicknell was subsequently exonerated of any involvement in Tia's death, and on the 7th of December 2012, Metropolitan Police announced that she would not face criminal charges. In a previous search of the house, police had recovered 2 memory cards, one of which had been extremely well hidden in the doorframe of a downstairs room. The cards contained both deleted and undeleted images and videos. The final image on one of the cards had been deleted, but experts were able to retrieve it. The image showed a naked young girl, believed to be Tia, positioned in a sexually suggestive position on a bed. The image in question was shown to a pathologist, who concluded that the girl was probably dead at the time the picture was taken, given that hypostasis, which typically doesn't develop until 2 hours after death, could be seen on her thighs. Other images and videos showed Hazel, naked, posing in a similar position to the one in which the girl in the photograph had been positioned after death. On the 12th of August, Hazel was formally charged with the murder of Tia Sharp. Hazel appeared by video link at Camberwell Magistrates Court on the 13th of August. He spoke to confirm his name, date of birth and his address, which he gave as The Lindens, New Addington, South London, where Tia's body had been found. No plea was entered, and the case was committed to the Old Bailey courthouse for trial. He was remanded in custody at Belmarsh Prison and kept in isolation for his own safety. In prison, he wrote a letter to his father, saying that Tia's death was an accident and that he was looking at a sentence of 15 years. His main concern was that his father did not think he was, in his words, a nonce, a slang term for a paedophile. On the 14th of September, 1 month after her death, Tia Sharp was cremated following a private family funeral. On the 5th of February 2013, Paul Meehan, the neighbour who claimed to have seen Tia leaving the house, was found guilty of wasting police time and in August that year was sentenced to 5 months in prison at Croydon Magistrates Court. He was released in January 2014. After an agonising investigation, it was time for Hazel to go on trial on the 7th of May 2013. He pleaded not guilty to the murder of Tia Sharp. He showed no emotion during the trial and refused to acknowledge any of Tia's family in the courtroom. The courtroom was shocked when they were shown the secret images of Tia. But when the courtroom was shown the photograph of the dead girl on the bed, her mother, Natalie, had to leave the room, traumatised and in tears. Christine Bicknell said the horrific photograph has been indelibly engraved in her memory and is on her mind every day. After 4 days of harrowing evidence, Stuart Hazel changed his plea to guilty. He said that Tia's family had suffered enough and that he did not want to put them through any more grief. The presiding judge, Mr. Justice Nichol, described his change of plea as commendable, but said that this did not detract from the fact that Tia's family had to endure 4 days of a very public trial and hearing what he had done to her. DCI Nick Scholar, however, was cynical of Hazel's guilty plea, believing he changed his plea purely because on that day he was due to take the stand and explain why, If Tia's death was an accident, he stripped her naked and photographed her body in a sexually suggestive position. Scholar suggested that Hazel was a coward who was not brave enough to take the stand and be cross-examined by the prosecution, so he changed his plea so as to avoid having his story disproven. On the 14th of May, Justice Nicholl sentenced Hazel to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 38 years, meaning he will be 75 before he can be considered for parole. The judge said he could not impose a whole life order because it could not be proven that Hazel's motivation was sexual. While this may sound like an unusual thing to say, especially when one considers that he photographed Tia's body post-mortem, what the judge meant was that he was not sure if Hazel had killed Tia for sexual gratification, or in an attempt to cover up an attempt to abuse her. Since his imprisonment in May 2013, Hazel has never explained why he killed Tia, or even what happened on the night of her death. But it has been suggested by forensic psychologist Dr. Kerry Nixon that he may have made sexual advances towards Tia, and murdered her after she rejected his advances and threatened to tell her mother. Given that none of Hazel's internet searches suggested that he was plotting to kill Tia, this seems to be the most likely explanation for why he killed her. On the 23rd of August 2012, Bernard Hogan Howe, Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, apologised for his force's failure to find Tia's body sooner, saying the error could not be attributed to a single officer and that he wanted to understand what processes and management decisions we've made that led to that failure. In June 2013, a few weeks after Hazel's sentencing, the home in which he and Christine Bicknell had lived was demolished, and in 2014, new houses were being built on the site. Also in 2013, Stephen Carter, Tia's father, said he backed a plan for websites to be ordered to block certain search terms and to warn people when they try to view illegal content. Google and Bing, partly in response to the murders of Tia Sharp and April Jones, modified their systems to block results from searches aimed at images of child abuse. In 2017, it was reported that Hazel had stabbed a fellow inmate in the face with a knife.